The video before this talked about Good Friday and why it was Good Friday, and then hopefully when you went to church or whether you watched it online or you know whatever you did to get your Easter message in. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got to spend that time with your church family and your family as well. Today we're going to be taking a look almost a week later in Scripture of what happened after Easter. In this story we're going to read, which is in John 24 through 29, we see Jesus and Thomas. And we're going to take a look at this because not only we, as we're present, as we are a week past Easter, I wanted us to see what happened biblically a week past Easter as well. As many of you guys know about Thomas in this story, in this encounter, I just hope to bring it in a new light or bring it in a new perspective. And today we're going to be talking about 3 different things we can learn from Thomas. And hopefully it'll be encouraging. Hopefully you can take it home and reflect and meditate and marinate on it and let it stir in your heart and let it be a reflection of how you treat people and how you go about your life as we're in this quarantine. But anyways, let's read our passage today. Once again, it's in John 20, looking at verses 24 through 29. And it says, "Now Thomas was one of the 12, called the twin, which was not with them when Jesus came." Verse 25, so the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I have seen in his hands the marks of the nails, and placed my fingers into the marks of the nails, and placed my hand into his side, I will never believe." 8 days later, his disciples were inside again, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them, saying, "Peace be with you." And then he said to Thomas, "Put your fingers here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said to him, Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen me and yet believe." Alright, so as we read this story and as we know about Thomas, this is where Thomas gets his nickname, Doubting Thomas. But beforehand, we see in Thomas in John 11, we see Thomas, we see that he was the only one that was willing and faithful to, or not, maybe not faithful is the right word, but loyal to Christ in this situation. So in John 11, Jesus hears that Lazarus had died, and where Lazarus was in Bethany, which is close to Jerusalem. And at this time, during this point in Scripture, Jesus is already getting these death threats. Jesus has already had this reputation of what he's done, how he's healed the people, and how he's doing all these different miracles. So obviously the people, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the religious group, obviously they're already making their plans to crucify or to kill Jesus. And so for Jesus to go back to Bethany or close to the area where those people are who are putting out those threats, who are doing those things, obviously the disciples who like life, like me and you, we like to live. Living is good. Jesus was wanting to go back. And at this time, we see Thomas step up in John 11, and he says, "Let us go, or let us also go, that we may die with them." Meaning, him knowing that threats are out there, him knowing that what could possibly happen, yet he is still willing to go with Jesus to go see Lazarus. And so, before we just dive into why Thomas is doubting Thomas, I think we need to take a look at that, of his loyalty and of his faith, of that he was one of the only ones willing to go with Jesus into a city full of threats, full of danger, while the other disciples, as we look in John 11, were trying to talk Jesus out of it. So before we just dive in, and automatically just say Thomas was doubting 24/7. Thomas was actually very little, and then as we're going to talk about later in this discussion or devotion, we see that Thomas actually takes the gospel into India and some other places as that, and because of his faith and because of sharing the gospel, he was actually end up as a martyr. He actually died for the faith, but we'll get to that a little later. But so to keep the video short, there's 3 things we can learn from Thomas. Probably the number one thing that stuck out to me was, or the one thing that I learned as I was rereading this and as I was studying, it's okay to doubt as long as we don't stay there. It's okay to doubt as long as we don't stay there. Our doubting needs to point us back to a point of remembrance and of reflection. See, when we talk about Thomas and when we talk about his doubting came from an earnest or a genuine heart, meaning his doubt was from a place of not just like, oh, I don't believe you, or oh, I don't get it, so I'm not going to accept it. His doubt was, I'm not going to believe Jesus until I have that hard physical evidence. And we're like that also. Like, we don't take, the point I'm trying to make is he's not taking anybody's word, or he's not taking anybody's persuasion, or however you want to look at it. He's not taking anyone's word for what it is. He wants the hard evidence. He himself is the one doing the research to find out the truth. So if our doubting gets us to that point of where we're able to do our own research, where we're able to look and search for the truth, I truly believe it's okay to doubt. For instance, me and one of my youth, we got into one time, and we both had to get to the point where we had to do our own research to find out the truth on the situation. And he's probably watching. He may or may not comment, but they know what I'm talking about. The point is, when we doubt, whether it be our salvation or whether it be a person's truth, whether they're trying to tell us the truth or whether they're trying to do whatever, in that moment, in that time, whether we don't believe them or whether we have doubts, we have that decision to make to go and do that research and go and find out what the truth is. And we see that with Thomas. We see that he's not taking the disciples' word for what it is. Not that they don't have any credibility, because they do. They were with him during this time. They were with him as Jesus called them to be his disciples, as he went to the cross. So they had credibility, but even then, Thomas wanted that hard physical evidence that was eventually given to him when he went back with them to wherever they were as they were gathering, and Jesus came and told him to place his hands in the marks and stuff like that. So that's one thing. That's point one of 3 points that we can learn from Thomas, that it's okay to doubt as long as we don't stay there, as long as it points us back to remembrance and to reflection, to finding out what the truth is. Point number 2, our past doubts doesn't set our future. Our past doubts doesn't set our future. Just because Thomas had this doubt, it didn't mean it defined his future for later in life. As we learned and as we study about Thomas, we see that he goes and continues in the ministry. We see that he goes and continues and eventually dies for the gospel. So just because he was named Doubting Thomas does not mean that doubt, does not mean that, I don't know, I guess maybe that past regret or whatever you want to call it, set his eternal future. In fact, it almost lit a fire for him to figure out the truth, to figure out that, yes, Jesus is who he says he is, and then he went and proclaimed Christ even to the point of death. And I think that's something we can take as well in our lives, no matter what our past doubts, no matter what our past trials and tribulations or troubles we have. That is not the setting point. That is not the cornerstone of our future. That we can get past it. That we can strive and to do and be better. Kind of like what that just kind of re-emphasizes or confirms point one, that yes, we may doubt, but as long as it's taken to that point of remembrance of reflection of Christ and what He has done in our lives already, our future will be that much stronger in our faith. So it's okay to doubt as long as we don't stay there, and our past doubts doesn't set our future. And then the final thing is God is going to meet you where you are. We see that Thomas, like ourselves, oftentimes we doubt the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God, what God has already done for us. A lot of times we doubt that. Maybe not 24/7, or maybe not, maybe we don't make it as big, or it's not seen in Scripture, or whatever. But the point is, Thomas needed that hard physical evidence proof, just like us, just like we do. And in that time, in the right place, Jesus will come in and will give us the hard facts. He'll give us the evidence that prove that He is God, and that He is faithful, and that He is sovereign. So I hope this is encouraging to you. I hope you're able to live this. I hope that you're able to marinate on it. Let it wrestle, or you wrestle with it. So once again, the 3 things we can learn. It's okay to doubt as long as we don't stay there, as long as it's pointing us back to reflection or remembrance of Christ and what He has done in our lives. Our past doubts does not set our future. Just because we messed up, or just because we have doubts, does not mean we can take that into the future. Does not mean that will hold us back from the promises that God has for us. And God is going to meet you where you are, whether you're in the low or the lows, in the valleys, or whether you're on the mountaintops. God's going to meet you in both places, and He's going to bless you. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.